Hello, Emilio. How are you this evening? We're going to get started in just a few more minutes.
I'm well, thank you.
Good, good, good. Is my camera on?
It is not.
Oh, wow. All righty. Interesting. Let me see. Oh, I think I know why. Let me just, let me do this.
Oh, hi, Ian.
So it should be on now.
We don't see you.
Yeah. And where is my camera this evening? Aha. All right, guys, we're going to get started in a few more minutes. We'll wait for about 5 more minutes and then we'll get started, guys. Hello, Renee. Hi, Vanessa. How are you? Good to see you this evening.
Hi, Dr. Hargret.
Hello, hello. Hello, Yolanda. Good to see you this evening.
Hi. Nice to see you too.
We're going to get started in about 3 more minutes, guys. Kyle?
Yes.
Can you look on, there's a slide coming up and there's a link because I want them to do a little mini learning preferences quiz, not quiz, but questionnaire. Can you find that link? It should be about slide 3 or 4. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you this evening. Hello, Renee. Good to see your face.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I am well. Looking forward to our meeting.
Likewise, all the coaches are excited.
Oh, good.
I don't have editing privileges, so you have to, I can't click on it. I can't,
Okay.
you have to send it to me.
All right.
The same way you send the Zoom link in the Hangouts, you can just send it that way.
Okay, I'm just gonna put the link in the chat. And then if you'll copy it and then repost it, please.
You can't copy and paste in Zoom chat.
Okay, so can you click on the link?
I got it. I got it.
Okay. Well, it's about that time, ladies and gentlemen and guys. About that time for us to start. So as soon as we get the presentation up, today we're going to talk about learning preferences. Have you ever kind of taken an inventory about the way that you learn? You can put it in the chat or you can open your mic.
I did a long time ago.
You have a long time ago?
Yeah.
Okay, Emilio, you have. So for me, Emilio, this is going to be a refresher for you. I'm going to have a little bit of a twist though, because I'm going to not just talk about your learning styles, but because I'm a professor at Broward College and also a trainer, I do train professors at Broward College, then I'm going to talk about the way that professors learn and then the same way they learn, they teach. So that's going to be a little bit of a caveat this evening. So give me just a second and we'll get started. So welcome, welcome, welcome. How's everybody this evening? You can put it in the chat. Are you doing well? Doing great. Thanks, Renee. Emilio, how are you? You're doing great.
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, thanks. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you guys doing with your coursework now that any of you taking an 8-week class? That's finishing up now, finishing up in about a week or so. Anybody, or are you all taking 15-week classes, 16-week classes? Renee is, yeah. So about this time, I guess it's getting intense, yeah? You gotta get that work done, get the finals, get ready for finals and all that good stuff, yeah? That's what's going on. So, okay, and Samara, you're taking an 8-week class too. I remember those. So just finishing up an essay, yeah. Hopefully you're using some of the information that that we learned in the Writing for College Success course, because that is some information that should help you. So if you'll go to the next slide. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to identify your learning preferences. And for those of you who have already done this, this is going to be a refresher. And then we're going to determine your learning preference. Then we're going to use learning preferences to determine your study techniques. And finally, we are going to identify your instructor's learning or teaching styles based on the way that they teach you. And I'm going to ask you, as you observe them, can you identify their teaching style? So, next slide, please. Now, since some of you have said that you are familiar with your learning style, if I said, are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner, meaning that you learn by hearing? Or are you a kinesthetic? And they use the word kinesthetic, but all that means is hands-on. Are you a hands-on learner? So Renee says that she's a hands-on visual. What about the rest of you? Ian, Simon, Vanessa, Kathy, Samara, Yolana. Is it Julian? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Hi.
Is it, how do I pronounce your name, Mr. Vargas?
Julian.
Julian, okay, thank you. So are you visual, auditory, or a kinesthetic hands-on learner?
I'm certainly a visual learner.
You are certainly a visual learner. Great. And Emilio says all of the above. Simon, what do you say?
I'd say that I'm more of a visual. I'm saying I'm all of the above.
You're all of the
Especially when it
above
comes to
as well?
yeah, especially visual and hands-on.
Visual and hands-on, gotcha. Ian,
Yes.
what are you?
Yes,
Do you
hello.
know? I'm sorry?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you called on me.
No, yes, I was. I was asking you, are you a visual or auditory or kinesthetic learner, do you think?
I think I'm a visual learner. I like when things are like laid out in front of me.
Okay. So do you think it matters? Do you think it matters if you know which of these learning styles you are? And how do you think it might matter for you? How do you think it might help you if you really understand the way that you learn? How might that help you?
I think it'll give you a better understanding of how to function with what you're learning. Like if you're a visual learner, you know that if you're taking a class that is just strictly, audio, then you're not going to really function because you're not learning from it. You're just going along with the flow. Whereas if you're a visual learner, you'll have a more interest because you're actually seeing what you're learning. So it's something that you're into.
Exactly. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. So Ian says, definitely, you can get an education much easier if you know and can express to your teachers. And that's exactly right. That is exactly right, Ian. And, a lot of times we don't know how we learn. Did Yolanda say something? Ilana? Let me see, did I miss something? Okay. Yeah, so sometimes we don't know how we learn. This was so eye-opening for me when I learned that I have a learning preference. Now, sometimes it's called learning style, but a lot of the educators have gotten away from saying learning style to saying learning preference, because what a learning style sometimes connotes or means is that you have one way of learning. The best way is this is your style. This is the way you do things. That's not necessarily true, is it? Sometimes you may do things one way, sometimes you may do things another, but you might notice that you have a habit of doing things a certain way. You might be a person that likes to fold your laundry as soon as you take it out of the dryer. Or you may be a person that doesn't fold at all. You may be a person that prefers to hang up your clothes. You may be a person that prefers to fold them up and put them in drawers. We all have our preferences, wouldn't you agree? And so when it comes to learning, we have preferences too. So let's watch this video, which is on the next slide. Well, no, I'm sorry. Before we watch the video, what I'd like for all of you to do, in the chat, you are going to see a link. What I want you to do is click on that link and complete the questions. I think there are only about 10 of them, but open the link. And when you open the link, it's 20 questions. It says, what's your learning style? Visual, auditory, or tactile? Tactile means kinesthetic or hands-on. So it's 20 questions. And I'm going to ask you all to complete it, please. And I'm going to give you as much time as you need to complete it. So the very first question says, are you all there yet? Are you able to access the link?
Yes.
I
Great.
am, yes.
Great. Is there anybody that I need to wait on? Because we'll go through these questions together. Anybody who's not able to access the link yet? All right, so if you've all accessed the link, and you can go ahead of me. Question 1 says, what kind of book would you like to read for fun? A book with lots of pictures, a book with lots of words, or a book with word searches or crossword puzzles? Which kind of book would you like to read for fun? And then question number 2, when you are not sure how to spell a word, what are you most likely to do? Write it down to see how it looks, spell it out to see how it sounds, or trace the letters in the air, you know, like finger. Which one of the 3? I'm sorry, Joe Manley? Jermaine, were you saying something?
No.
Okay, so you guys, are you going through the questions, right? I don't think you need me to read every one of them, right? Would you let me know in the chat when you finished? You can just put finished in the chat. Let's see if you were right. You told me what your learning styles were, but now when you finish this, let's see if you were correct about them. How you doing? You guys doing okay? Any questions?
It keeps saying like, which one are you most likely to do? I'm like, but I do all of them.
But is there one that you lean toward? Is there
It
one that
depends on the day.
I
depends on the
agree. I'm having that same issue. There's no,
I don't want you to overthink this. Whatever comes to your mind first, just put it down. That's what I want you
Okay.
to do. Don't overthink it. Just boom, quickly. That's how you do things like that. Just quickly choose one. Don't overthink it. Okay, great. Thanks, Renee. Did you get what you thought you should have gotten? Huh. 55% auditory, 25% visual, but I don't know if I really agree with that. I got you. Huh. Interesting. I knew I had two, visual and tactile. Okay. So I think this is Kyle, right? Kyle is auditory and tactile. So Kyle is auditory and hands-on. And the visual is 20%. So you are definitely the two learning styles, the two learning types, you are neck and neck with auditory and tactile. Auditory 60, visual 30, tactile 10. What do you think, Samara? Renee?
I agree with mine.
You do?
Yeah, I really do, because I'm thinking about it. I studied music all my life, so I am more in tune to music stuff. Like when I'm studying, sometimes if I can't remember the word, I'll start humming it to myself, and that's how I remember something. Like a paragraph, if I put it like in a tune, I'll remember the entire paragraph.
That's good. That's good. Because you know for sure how you learn, right? By putting it in a tune and saying it, it's like when I was young and I did not remember of my orders of operation. You remember orders of operation in math? Remember that, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Right now, the only way I was able to remember that, guys, was because I was able to put it in a little rhyme. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, I also added, she limps from left to right, because you have to go from left to right, don't you, with the orders of operation. So that's what I had to do. Before then, I could never remember my orders of operation. So Vanessa, we have Vanessa's, we have Emilio. So Samara agrees. I think Emilio doesn't agree. Who doesn't agree here? Let's see. Let me broaden this out. So Ian, he's not sure if he agrees. And Samara agrees. And Emilio disagrees. Samara, let me see, Emilio. Renee, what about you? What do you think about your scores? I tried to work on all of them. I understand, Renee, and rightfully so. Ilana, 40. So you're the same as Kyle. Auditory and tactile with visual at 20%. What do you think of your scores, Ilana?
There are a lot of questions about like music and stuff. So I was like, I like music. I think I do like to like touch things. It's like if there was like a cube or something.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, like in like elementary school, they had like those blocks.
Yes.
And for like the tens, the hundreds, and
Yes.
stuff. So I still remember that. So I kind of agree with that. So I think it's interesting.
Okay, good. Now we're going to move on to a short video that's going to explain these things a little bit more. And then once you hear what is explained in this short video, see if it helps you to understand your scores a little bit more. So watch this short video, please.
Learning styles. How do you learn best? I wonder what we're doing in class today. I hope Mrs. Lawson streams a video. It's cool to watch and learn about all sorts of new things. Videos like that put me to sleep. I like when Mrs. Lawson talks about the lesson. It's interesting to hear what she has to say.
Ugh, not me. I don't like to sit in my chair. I like to get up and get moving when it comes to learning.
Well, you are all in luck. When I teach my lessons, I aim to meet everyone's learning styles.
Learning styles?
Learning styles? What's that all about?
Your identified learning style gives you an idea of how you learn best. We all learn using 3 modalities or ways of learning. Visual, learn by seeing. Auditory, learn by listening. And kinesthetic, learn by doing. In class today, we will take an inventory to see which modality is strongest for you.
Ah, I see what you're saying, Mrs. Lawson. I'm excited to try new study strategies. I hear what you're saying, Mrs. Lawson.
Let's jump on our laptops and get our hands on new study strategies.
A popular visual study strategy is to try to visualize things that you hear or things that are read to you. For those of you that are auditory learners, try this study strategy. Use mnemonic devices, rhymes, and jingles to remember information. And for those of you who find the kinesthetic study strategy to be the most appealing, I'd suggest that you use flashcards and arrange them in groups to show relationships between ideas. There are lots of great strategies to go along with each learning style. You can review study strategies to help you prepare for tests and learn new material. From everything I've heard you say, I bet you are a visual learner, you are an auditory learner, and you are a kinesthetic learner. Let's take the inventory and find out.
Brought to you by Smart Futures.
So there you have it. And what you saw from that video was the 3 learning styles that we just did the inventory on. And you could see from the little characters what their preferences were. So let's go to the next slide.
Learning style.
And we know that when we understand our learning preference or learning style, then it's easier for us to be able to process information. Now, have you ever been in a classroom and the professor is teaching and everybody seems to be getting it, and you're looking around and you're not getting it at all? Has that ever happened to you? Yes, great. Yeah, a few times, got it. Yeah, well, that has certainly happened to me. And so I was in a class in my graduate school program. I was at FIU, and I was in the class with one of my best friends. Her name is Ruth. And it was a class on advanced statistics. Now, math is always challenging. And so I can tell you that I went into that class with a little bit of, real fear. How am I ever going to pass this class? But I sat in the class with Ruth. I sat right next to her because Ruth is a very strong math-oriented person. As the guy is talking, his name was Dr. Averidge. Dr. Averidge is talking about stats, and he's talking about it and talking about it. She is more and more alive, more and more awake, and I am more and more like confused and miserable and thinking, my God, I'm never going to pass this class. But I realized that the way that he was discussing the information in the class, it appealed to her learning style. After class, we went and got something to eat, and we sat there, And I told her I didn't understand a word that that man said. And I'm serious. I didn't understand. She sat there and she taught me the lesson using the information that he shared, but breaking it down because she's known me a long time, so she knows how I learn. And I understood everything. She was teaching to my learning style. Does that make sense? Yes. Thank you guys, thank you. Yeah, that's a great friend. And she, let me tell you, she helped me through, but then, you know, I helped her through some classes too. And we're still helping each other today. So one hand washes the other. So yes, she's a great friend. Now, when you think about some classes that you were in, where you found it difficult to learn, can you describe how that teacher was teaching? What was it about what the instructor was doing that made it difficult for you to learn? So put it in the chat or open your mic and tell me, think back to that time and tell me, what does the professor do that generally makes it a little difficult for you to learn? So I had a friend like that in my music theory class. That is great, because we all need a friend like that. So think back to a time when you were in a class where you were you felt miserable because you were not getting it. And think about how that teacher was teaching. What were they doing that made it kind of confusing for you? And put that in the chat. Teaching like, yes, teaching like a textbook, right? And so that means what? Teaching like you're reading just out of a textbook, like going word for word. All they do is read the PowerPoint and move too quickly through the examples. Yeah, and that does them, not giving students enough time. Mostly audio classes are not interactive. Yes. So what that's saying is, one of my professors last semester gave bits and pieces of questions. That's how my chemistry class is. Yep, I get it. So how on earth do you cope in a class like that? He only reads. So if he only reads, and that is not something that could really help you to learn, what are you going to do in the class to be able to get a good grade? Because you can't drop every class, can you? You can't say, this teacher's not teaching and it's halfway through the term, so let me just withdraw from the class. So Emilio says that he takes notes and redoes them to himself to use outside resources. Emilio, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about this evening. And then Fatima says, I struggle a lot in math due to that. I totally understand what you experienced. And the PowerPoint he posts, I take them. Understood, understood. So Emilio, what you're doing is you are going outside of the classroom to help yourself learn, and you're not just depending on what the professor is doing inside of the classroom. And that's exactly the point that I'm going to talk about today. So when you get into a class, this is going to happen a lot in your academic career. Now, I hate to say this, because in that little video, the professor says that she tries to teach to everybody's learning style. So if you have 3 major learning styles, it means the professor has to give you something visual, has to give you something that you can hear. So an audio, whether it's speaking or videos, and then the professor has to give you something that you can what? That you can do. Yes. That you can touch. Yes. something that allows you to be a part of the class. That's called active learning. And when the professor gives you an opportunity to do something, or even have a conversation where it's not just a one-sided lecture, 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 and then at the very end, the professor might say, any questions? And it's like 5 minutes to the end of the class. Then what you find is that you are going to have to do some learning outside of the classroom. So how do you do that? Glad you asked. So let's move on to the next slide. Now, we had visual learners in the room, didn't we? Yes. So let's see what visual learners need to do to learn and to study to be successful. So if you'll click once more, Kyle, just click, not the next slide. So visual learners, and here are some things that visual learners like you, if you're a visual learner, can do to learn better. Now, this information comes exactly from that learning inventory that you took. So that little questionnaire, but in the textbooks that I've used to teach this, these are the same things that they recommend. So first of all, visual learners, depending on your eyesight, you might want to sit in the front of the class. Now, I know that many of you don't like to be in the front of the class. I'm talking about physical classes now, right? If you're in a physical classroom, I'm not talking about Zoom, but I'm talking about being in a physical classroom. So you may want to sit up front so that you can see the information more clearly. And so Fatima says that she uses flashcards a lot, but I still could not, let me see. But I still could not find the best study method for math. Okay, so let me look and see what your learning styles were. Let me go back, Fatima. What did you put? What did you put in the chat for your learning style? Or did you? Did you put what yours was? I don't think I see it in the chat. Did you come out as a visual or a kinesthetic or a auditory? Which one did you come out as, Fatima, when you took the little 20 question? Or were you able to do it? The little 20 question. I took that last test yesterday and I got auditory. All right. So I'm going to give you, in a minute, I'm going to give you some suggestions. I'm an auditory learner too. I'm going to give you some suggestions for auditory in just a minute that work for me, and maybe they'll work for you, maybe. So let me get through the visual, then I'm going to give you some auditory suggestions, some suggestions for auditory learners. So for visual learners, again, it doesn't mean you're the teacher's pet, but sitting in front of the classroom, being engaged with the board is important for you guys. And especially if you have eyesight that doesn't allow you to see things close up. For me, if I'm not wearing my glasses in the classroom, I can't see the board clearly. So I have to sit up front in order to see what's going on. Now, it says to use flashcards to learn new words. But what that means is that when you have the flashcard, you are going to read the flashcard, turn it over, and then practice it, and then look at it again. So for you as a visual learner, you have to keep on seeing it. You have to keep on seeing it till it goes from your short-term to your long-term memory. So you have to keep on bringing it back to your memory until it goes from short-term to long-term memory. And that takes time. And so that's what visual learners have to do. Now, when a visual learner should try to visualize things that you hear as things or things that you read. So when you are reading something or you're hearing something, try to have a mental picture of it if you're visual learners. Like if I say cat, close your eyes and picture a cat, right? If I say what is that algebraic term? I can't remember. But if let's say I was to say the Pythagoras theorem, you would have to close your eyes and visual the actual, equation in your head for you to be able to picture it clearly. The formula. Yes, thank you, Fatima. So you have got to, visual learners have got to write it and read it, write it and read it, write it and read it till it goes from short-term memory to long-term memory. You can even draw pictures. Even if you're not good at drawing pictures, visual learners tend to do well when there are pictorial representations of data, like charts and graphs and mind maps. And color coding things helps visual learners. So anything that's important, you might put a red highlighter. Anything that you want to study later, you may have a yellow highlighter. Color coding things helps visual learners to study and learn. And avoid distractions. Many times, of course, in your generation, there's so many things that distract you. Your phone, right? You've got to keep on looking at the phone. And so put the thing on mute for a while you're studying. Remember that visual learners learn by seeing. Visual learners learn by seeing. Next slide, please. Okay, Fatima, now we're going to go to the auditory learners. Hopefully the slide isn't stuck. Unfortunately, with Google Slides, when you don't move them for a while, they get stuck. Kylie, they get stuck? All right, I'm going to bring mine up as well this way. If I can bring it up, I will. Give me a second. You know Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong.
Yes, it did.
It got stuck?
I'm coming back now.
Okay, great. All right.
It's not sharing for me. Did you turn screen share off?
I did.
No.
I'm putting it right back on. 1 second, please.
Oh, okay.
Are we there? If it's giving you a hard time, let me know, because then I can share as well.
Can you see it?
You guys, are you seeing it?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So are we on auditory learners now? Is that the slide?
Yes.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. Now, guys, if you're auditory learners, then you learn by how? How do you learn best, auditory learners? You learn best by hearing. Exactly. Thank you. Now, auditory learners don't necessarily have to sit in the front of the classroom, but they have to be able to hear clearly. Some professors are soft-spoken, so you still may want to sit up front. I'm talking about in a physical classroom now. Some professors may have a different language than you're used to. So that means you have to pay specific attention. And in that case, you may want to ask if you can record your lectures. Now, Fatima, this is especially for you. Years ago, I didn't understand my learning style. When I started to record my lectures and I listened to them, because I went to FAU. So what I would do is I would record the lectures, and then on the way home, I would listen to them again. I was able to recall the information so much better. So even if you don't record your lectures, reading assignments and directions out loud helps auditory learners, because hearing it actually helps you to process it. So saying it out loud actually helps you to get it from your short-term to your long-term memory so that it's there for tests and quizzes and the like. And if you have a test question, quietly read it out loud, because you're hearing what you're saying, and auditory learners need to hear. And when you have study material, read it out loud or say it into a recorder and then listen to it again. And you'll find that you get it. The light bulb comes on. So that's my advice to you, Fatima. Does that make sense? Try it. And then if you come into workshops, maybe 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now, in January, if I do some more, then tell me if it works. I am so, I'd love to hear if it worked for you. It worked for me. Okay, so remember, auditory learners learn by hearing. Next slide, please. Now, tactile kinesthetic learners learn by touching, by doing. And so, one more click, please. The kinesthetic learners have to be a part of it. They've got to be involved. In a class where you can't be involved, then I would suggest that you teach it to somebody else. Find the information and teach it to somebody else in the teaching of it. Or if you don't teach it to somebody else, kinesthetic learners, at least get into a study group and talk it out with other people. Hear other people's point of view. As you're talking it out and you're getting information from other people, tactile learners tend, because they're participating in it, they tend to learn. The other thing is, have you ever been to the second floor of the library in Central Campus, and you notice that they have these plastic Godivers? Like you'll have the brain, you can pull out the brain, you can pull out the heart, you can pull out the lungs, the liver, the kidney. Tactile learners should try to get things that they can touch as much as possible. So if you're a health science major, physically touching a plastic Godiva will help you. So do lots of hands-on activities. And tactile learners tend to learn by walking, by jogging, by moving, by doing. And use flashcards and arrange the flashcards in groups and that show the relationships between each other. So if you're doing if you're studying, and let's say you're studying and you're trying to, study for math, and you have different types of math questions, to put the information on different flashcards or different color cards and group them together, because it's in the doing and the touching and the feeling and the colors that helps you to learn. So next slide, please. You can trace words. And take frequent breaks, tactile learners, because you got energy and you need to expend it. It's okay to kind of tap a pencil, because believe it or not, tactile learners, you need to be doing something. Does that make sense? And use your computer, right? Touch the computer, type on the computer, do things to help you to remember things. So physically do things. Make sense, tactile hands-on learners? Great.
Yes.
All right, now, next slide, please. So the last piece is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I have observed this through the years, and as I've done training for faculty, and I see how faculty learn, I realize that faculty teach the way they learn. So when you go into a classroom, and if a faculty is reading out loud to you, then they learn that way. If a faculty is putting you in groups and doing things, they learn that way. And if a faculty is showing you lots of videos and stuff like that, then they tend to learn. So they learn the way they teach, or they teach the way they learn. So next slide, please. Now, identify your instructor's teaching techniques. So click, now, if your faculty reads instructions out loud, if they read test questions and directions out loud in class, what kind of learner do you think that faculty is?
Auditory?
Visual, you think? So listen, they read out loud. What do you think?
Auditory.
Auditory. So one more click, Kyle. Auditory it is. The next one, click again. So if your faculty does a lot of hands-on activities, projects, field trips, groups, scenarios, what's their learning style?
Tactile.
Yes. One more click. Hands-on, kinesthetic, tactile, exactly. And obviously the third one then is if they provide lots of pictures and they talk about lots of concepts and then they explain with pictures, obviously then their learning style is visual. When you go into a classroom and you can identify these things, you will know almost immediately within the first week if this is going to be an easy enough class for you in terms of the way that they teach, or if you're going to have to do a lot of work outside the classroom. Does that make sense? Yes? All right, guys. So to wrap up, next slide, please. And then click. To wrap up, simply put, as you guys already know, there are three basic learning types. There's the visual learner, there's the auditory learner, and there's the kinesthetic, tactile, hands-on learner. The visual learner learns by seeing, the auditory learner learns by hearing, the kinesthetic, hands-on, tactile learner learns by doing. It's as simple as that. And so the visual learner needs to see the board, needs to see the information, needs to see the pictures, the charts and the graphs, color-coded. The more vibrant the colors, the better, especially for your generation, because you grew up in this kind of internet era where everything, previous to this, a lot of things were black and white. They weren't as colorful as they are. But for you, you guys need to see colorful, vibrant stuff. For auditory learners, you need to hear it. And I don't just mean a video or an audio. I mean reading out loud, hearing yourself speak, hearing the directions, hearing you reading for yourself out loud as much as possible. Now, I know that's going to irritate people, but sometimes that's just what you're going to have to do. Kinesthetic learners, you're going to have to physically get some things and touch them, or do things in a group, or do things where you're doing some scenarios or something, even it's interaction. Hopefully that's like what we're doing in this class where I'm asking you questions and you're answering. That means that you're a part of the conversation and you're not just sitting listening to a lecture without participating at all. So in a nutshell, that's what learning preferences are. And as you can see from your own, and many of you had two, some of you did have one, and I know maybe you didn't agree. I would suggest that you go and take other learning style inventories. There's one called the VARC, which is about 70 questions. Try that one and see if that one gives you any different results. But certainly don't just get a mindset of, oh, I only learn one way. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, just like we have a preference in terms of the cars that we drive, the water that we drink, the places that we go to, we have preferences when it comes to learning styles. And the more questions, the more accurate the results. That's great, Emilia. All right, we are, of course, going to play the game. The quizzes, 10 questions as usual. So get prepared. Go to, what is it? Is it My Quizzes, Kyle? What's the website? Well, he'll bring it up in a second and you'll be able to see it. But as Kyle is bringing it up, are there any questions or anything that you'd like to share with your classmates pertaining to what we just talked about this evening?
So a lot of times when people are talking to me, I will remember what they said later. So I just would write down what they said.
That's good.
So
Well,
that might help.
Yeah, thank you. So
You're welcome.
That you see, that's a suggestion. Sometimes if you've listened to something, if you go back later and write it down, that might help you. All right, so now go to your devices and go to joinmyquiz.com. Even though there are spaces there, don't put spaces, just put joinmyquiz.com. Joinmyquiz.com. As usual, we have the 3 prizes. And I know that the prizes were slightly late this week, but I know that you should have gotten them. And whatever email that you put in the chat this evening, that's the email that we'll send the prizes to. Great. So Julian, Joe Manley, let's see, Ian, Emilio, we're waiting, and Renee, we'll wait. Oh no, Renee's in, Simon is in. So we'll give you another couple of minutes and we'll get started. Great, Ian's in. Oh yeah, Emilio's in. Joe-Mainly, are you going to play this evening? Great, so we'll wait, don't worry, we'll wait. So again, go to joinmyquiz.com, put in the game code, which is 607147. 607147. Are you having problems getting in? Oh, yeah. Now we can get started. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, guys. Congratulations, Emilio. Wait a minute, who's first place? Okay, first place, Ian. We can get that out of there. First place, Ian. Second place. Okay. All right. So please now, guys, congratulations. Again, put your email in the chat so that we can send the prizes. It was Emilio, yes? Okay, and Ian, I think we have Ian's already, but just in case. Right, and who was the other one, Kyle? Who else won? First, second, and third?
Ian, Emilio, and Simon.
Simon, do we have your email?
Yeah, I just put in the chat.
All right, thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure as usual meeting with you this evening. We went over about 5 minutes, but that wasn't terrible, I hope. And I hope you got some good learning and good information and good interaction from this workshop. Take good care. I'll see you next week. This one is going to be very, very interesting. It's FAFSA tips and tricks. But what I did was I interviewed one of the financial aid directors, and I have an audio recording of the 5 things she thinks that cause students to have problems with their FAFSA renewal. So come on in for that, because you want that money, right? It's not just the grants and the loans, but it's also some of the scholarships you have to get through FAFSA. So come on back next week and learn how to do that. Take good care and good night, guys.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye, Simon. Bye-bye, Emilio.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Ian. Take good care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Ilana. Take care, Ilana. It's good to see you this evening. Ilana, it's good to see you this evening. Take good care.
Good to see you too.
Julian, did you have questions?
No.
All right, well, take good care and have a good evening. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. You're free? Okay. Oh, good. All right. Okay, guys. Any questions or concerns, Kathy? Dr. Singletary, everything cool?
I really dislike Zoom today.
Yeah, Zoom was really messy. Good night, guys.
The whole I can't copy and I can't copy the text in the chat.
The emails?
Yeah, I have to physically write them and then copy them.
Okay.
And I've never seen numbers in a Broward email before.
They have numbers when there's a lot of people who have the same like initials.
Okay.
So do you want me to tell you what they are?
No, I got it. I got it. I will send the emails now.
You send the prizes? Okay,
Yes.
all right, thanks. Take care. Did you think that was your learning style?
Who, me?
Yeah,
Yeah, auditory and hands-on is definitely my learning style.
yeah, mine too. I'm exactly the same way. I have to
Yeah.
hear it and I have to touch it. I don't ever have to see it.
If someone like just shows me stuff with pictures, I would never learn anything, honestly.
Yeah,
I have to like hear it and do it.
yeah. If I'm trying to do something and they, you know how you have those little charts and graphs and pictures to put something together, like a piece of furniture or something like that, I can't follow that.
Yeah, especially in math, like math, especially you have to, it's like people are showing you their method of solution, but if you don't grasp concepts, then you're just like basically just learning how to do something and never understanding the concept on
Right.
why they'd use that concept to figure out the solution.
Hello, Dr. Singletary, how are you?
You're muted, sir. Oh, he's not muted and audio is still not coming through.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
there we
there you
go.
Yeah, you have to physically unmute your headset on
Yeah.
the wire.
Still
Yeah, we
can't
still
hear
can't
you.
hear you.
Still not hearing
There's
you.
a mute button on your headset. There should be
Yeah.
on your actual headset.
Mhm.
Yes, I just seen it. So the wire on your headset, the red
Mhm.
wire. Yeah, look, down closer to your waist. There's a button.
No,
No.
look on the
Yeah,
headset, he
there you
said,
go.
yeah.
There you
yeah.
go. Nothing.
Not yet.
Yeah, Zoom has been crazy today. don't
I
know
know,
what's going
Zoom
on.
has been a mess today. Still
Yep,
not
yep,
hearing you,
yeah.
sir.
Try to plug it in and plug it back in. Plug it out
Yeah.
and plug it back in.
Yeah. Nothing.
Nope.
This has been the story of our lives with Zoom today. Zoom has been messy. But
I
you
think
did
Kathy
get,
had the same problem. That's why she just wrote in the text and left. She just wrote in the chat because I don't
who,
think she could
Kathy?
unmute. Yeah, she couldn't unmute herself, so she just said, "Have a
Oh,
good night," and left.
oh, she couldn't unmute herself either. So Kathy was having the same problem, Dr. Singletary. Yeah, so she had to put in the chat.
So it's 25.
Okay. Oh, you were on another call earlier with no problems. Yeah. But Kathy said that she was, no, Samara said that there were problems. She had problems with Zoom throughout the day. And we had some this afternoon, but you know, it cleared up toward the workshop time. So the workshop was done fine. So you got the email today for the panel. And so you'll get more information after I meet with the trio folks next Tuesday. And I don't know if you want me to send you a list of some of the other workshops that I do. So maybe in the spring, you know, after the holidays, you might consider doing some more workshops, you know, having us do some more workshops for you. Okay, I understand. Budgets are always there. Gotcha. All right, so, but I'm looking forward to doing the first gen thing, and you will certainly get questions. You'll know what you're doing. We'll even have a dry run of the day beforehand. So you'll know, you won't be left high and dry. You'll know precisely what to do as we draw a little bit closer. Okay? All right. Bye-bye. All right, Kyle, see ya.
See, I'm pressing send now on the gift cards.
Good. Good, because last week they were calling and that's why I was blowing up your phone. Because I didn't want to send them out twice, but when I went in there, and it doesn't show you all the gift cards that were sent. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
know.
When you go in there. So I don't know what Amazon is doing. But anyway, this one was pulled off by the hair on our chinny chin chin. And I don't think it was anything that I was doing wrong. I don't think so. Do you?
I don't know what was going on. I did literally nothing different, and it finally let me in. The only thing I did different was sign into my BC account on the website.
You think that's what allowed you to come in?
No, because if you look at my profile in the Zoom chat, this is my Google profile. That I don't have my
Your
my
Broward
picture.
profile, yeah.
I don't have my picture in my Broward profile. So this is my Gmail account that I'm connected to. So I don't
Yeah.
know what the deal is.
I
with
don't
this.
know either, but it was touch and go, and I was getting so nervous because, you know, I like to give them a good, you know, I don't like to have hitches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately with technology, there's always going to be hitches.
Yeah,
Just gotta like.
I hate that it freezes. I hate that the thing freezes. I don't like that at all. But it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna do some research on that, see if I can get to the bottom of that one. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I didn't let the slides go idle. If you didn't watch me, I was switching back and forth
No,
to make sure
I
it
did
didn't
see
go.
you switching back and forth. I did see that.
So I don't know what's going on with that. And like when you say that it freezes and I go to stop sharing, Zoom crashes. My Zoom
Mhm.
crashes completely and I have to come back in.
I see.
So
That's
I mean, I just
crazy.
like used to it. So I just try to get back in and just get everything started as soon as possible again. All right, I'm gonna talk to Cameron now, so I'll talk to you later.
All right. I love that picture. I love that picture.
Yeah.
He just looks like a little man. He doesn't even look like a kid. I love the outfit that she's got for him. It's really nice.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you later. Love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.